Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:06. It's O'Connor and Company this Monday morning after Christmas, the 26th day. They call it Boxing Day there in the Commonwealth, not Virginia. I mean the Commonwealth, the British Commonwealth, where they still have a monarch. Yeah. They call it Boxing Day, and we hope you have a good one. Coming up at 7:05, Daniel Turner, Power of the Future. 7:45, Trevor Maddich on the Commanders' loss. That draft pick's looking good. 8:05, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer, and then at 8:35, Raymond Arroyo on his big Christmas Merry and Bright album. Raymond Arroyo can say that his album has just dropped. Imagine that.
Right.
Yeah, that's all coming up. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Julie Gunlock with the odd cough now and again.
That's
nice
right.
timing on that. No,
Coughing a little.
You got like a lot of people right now, it is going around. People are catching the COVID, and you caught it just yesterday.
I
Merry
did.
Christmas, one and all.
I
God
did.
bless us. This is God's little message to you to slow down.
That's right.
Just take a break.
Doing my
Slow it down
best.
a bit. All right. On Friday, the Supreme Court issued a statement with regard to Donald Trump's appeal against the charges that have been levied against him surrounding the events of January 6th. President Trump's contention, by the way, that he has immunity from criminal prosecution from his actions as president was with regard to the questions and contentions of the election results and the method in which the election was carried out. And also by, listen, part of the charges against him involve a speech that he delivered as president. And he says, you can't start prosecuting presidents because of the speeches they give and what might end up, happening because a citizen heard the speech and did something that they claimed was inspired by the speech. My God, what kind of can of worms are you opening here?
Right.
Obviously. Who are the grown-ups here, for God's sake? Well, he appealed it. And normally this would go to the D.C. Court of Appeals because, of course, they filed this charge in D.C. because, of course, they did. Because they know what the jury pool is like.
Right.
Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, if you want to call him that, he tried to fast-track the appeals process because he knew, understandably, that this would go to the Supreme Court. Why does Jack Smith know that this will go to the Supreme Court? Because he knows that he's testing the Constitution with this prosecution. Well, Jack Smith didn't want to wait through the process of the D.C. Court of Appeals because he's Jack Smith, for God's sake. Don't you know who he is? I don't wait
in line.
I'm Jack Smith. I'm trying to keep a man from being president.
I'll ruin your life. You cross me.
That's right. I will. I've got a grand jury on you right now just for saying it.
That's right.
That's Jack Smith. So he wanted to bypass the Court of Appeals and go right to the Supreme Court so that they could just decide it. Why the rush, Jack? And when you look at all of Jack Smith's appeals to the Supreme Court and all of the filings that he did explaining why there's this sense of urgency that we can't wait, we've got to get it done now. He never says it out loud. But the underlying message is, dude, we've got to prosecute him before the election.
That's right. Got to keep him off those ballots.
Which suggests, or even if he is on the ballot, we got to get him in jail because it'll hurt him on Election Day. And Julie, I am always embarrassed to concede this point, but I merely have a high school education. I don't have an advanced degree from a Hamas-loving elite Ivy League university. But on the face of it, it occurs to me that when the special prosecutors to the court is basically, we need to make this go fast so we can convict him before an election, it seems to me that there may be odds-on favorite that this is a political prosecution.
Yeah, I am really astonished without a college degree that you're able to analyze things so smartly, Larry.
Well, I read really smart people who know this stuff better than I do, and I just repeat it, I puppet them. But maybe it's me. But when you're basically saying he's running for president, he's on the ballot, the prosecution needs to happen quickly, Election Day's coming up, it sounds like you're focused on politics instead of finding the truth and actually, executing the law.
But Jack Smith isn't really a lawman. He's a political tool. He's a political tool.
Yeah.
He's an absolute
He's a willing tool is what he is.
He's a creature of Washington.
Oh,
and
he's a tool, all right.
yeah, and
there goes another
so
grand jury against me. Well, on Friday, the Supreme Court. You talk about a Friday news dump, a Friday news story on Christmas weekend. Friday, December 22nd. You know what? We've got time. Let's relax. I'm going to read this. It's very rare that you read an entire Supreme Court decision on the air.
There you go.
But I'm going to go ahead and do it.
Yep.
Here it is. Friday, December 22nd, 2023, United States versus Trump, Donald J. The petition for a writ of certiorari, it's Latin for, I don't know, before judgment.
It's Latin
is
for I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Latin. I have no idea. I'm a Novus Ordo kind of guy. The petition for a writ of certiorari before judgment is denied, period. End of decision. That was it. One sentence. Denied. Jack Smith was denied. The Supreme Court said, no, Jack, we're not going to fast track this so you can get a prosecution before election.
Yep.
Go through the process. So that is a loss for Jack Smith. Now, he's probably going to win at the appeals court, and maybe it will end up going to the Supreme Court, but the way these things go, Supreme Court's not going to look at it until at the earliest next fall, right?
Larry, was this a unanimous decision by the court?
It doesn't say.
It's just a.
It does not say. Yeah, this is not one of the, because this isn't an actual
it's
decision.
It's just a refusal to hear
right, it's a refusal to take it up. So Jack Smith's back to the drawing board now in terms of the timing for his case. Now, he's still going to try to fast track it, and his judge will certainly let him. Now, the argument that Jack Smith is making, by the way, in terms of why Donald Trump is not immune, this is pretty rich, actually. I don't know if you're aware of this. And I do want to, when I said, I read very smart people who sort of help me in their head, Mark Levin is one of them. But I'm not alone in the world of talk radio and taking my cues from Mark Levin. He's not kidding when he talks about the backbenchers listening to him in the evening, I assure you. Mark Levin, of course, who worked in Ed Meese's Justice Department for the entire Reagan administration and has forgotten more about constitutional law than most people will ever know.
Yeah.
He breaks down and analyzes the argument that Jack Smith is making here as to why Donald Trump's actions as president do not fall under presidential immunity. And I don't know if you're aware of this. His argument is, well, Gerald Ford issued a pardon to President Nixon to immunize him from any prosecution in the Watergate affair. The fact that Ford issued a pardon to Nixon sets a precedent that presidents' actions are able to be prosecuted, that they are up for scrutiny. Think now, that's his argument. It's a backdoor way in.
Wow.
Ford granted a pardon just so we wouldn't have this debate. The reason Ford issued the pardon was so the country could move on, because the Democrats would still continue to try to ruin Nixon's life as if it hadn't already been ruined enough, and drag the country through more. So to just preempt it, so we didn't have to have a Supreme Court battle about whether he was.
So Jack Smith is saying that's a form of prosecution, essentially.
He's basically acting as though that is
adjudication,
legitimate case law jurisprudence proving that now any president is open for prosecution based on his actions as president. Because he was pardoned.
This is bizarre.
Of course it is. And by the way, if you had told Gerald Ford that, oh, by the way, President Ford, if you issue this pardon, that means that every president in the future
set a precedent
can be
for
prosecuted.
Prosecution.
It's outrageous. But
wow. It's interesting.
But here's what's really scary. The judge seems to agree with Jack Smith.
Oh, that's shock.
The judge in this case.
A judge in D.C. seems to agree with Jack. Oh, yeah. Of course. That's a real headliner.
And she says, and I'm reading from Levin now, Judge Chutkin thinks this is a good thing.
Chutkin.
Chutkin.
This is Judge Chutkin, right.
Chutkin declares that future presidents will be more careful about the acts they take now.
Giving a speech?
It's maniacal. It's absolutely maniacal. And by the way, and let's not forget, and I want to continue with Mark Levin's analysis here, as Trump is charged with preposterous allegations of violating the KKK Act, the Enron statute, and a federal contractor statute, not insurrection or seditious conspiracy.
You're right. Yeah.
Let's not forget that. He's not even charged with insurrection, even though the Colorado Supreme Court has decided.
What's the KKK statute again, Larry?
This is this. Oh God, I was afraid you were going to ask me that.
I'm so sorry.
It goes down to this. It has to do with politicians. Oh, you know what? I'll answer that question in a second.
Well, just really quick. But
no, it's really good. No, it's not really quick. I will answer it in a second, and I'm not dodging, but we have to go to traffic because it's 6:16. Well, I have not had enough time to refresh my memory of what the KKK Act is.
Well, I'm just reading here. It's
Well, the original act had to do with the president suspending habeas corpus with regard to going after members of the Klan, which, of course, were all Democrats back in the day after the Civil War. Went under President Grant back in the day. Excuse me. This latest iteration, I know I've got many friends in the Justice Department who will send me emails, within a moment's notice. So I'll refresh your memory on that. But the whole point of the matter is Jack Smith's prosecution is completely political here. He's using he's not charging Trump with insurrection or anything of the sort, even though the Colorado Supreme Court has decided that he is already guilty of insurrection and can't be on the ballot. Trump this will not be fast-tracked to the Supreme Court, so now the timeline gets reset on this one. It was a bad day, a bad weekend for Jack Smith and the people who are trying to keep Donald Trump from the ballot.
I also encourage people to read Julie Kelly. She has been following Judge Chutkan.
She's got plenty.
Who is viciously anti-Trump and is making some quite ridiculous rulings on this matter.
All right. Meanwhile, in Russia, there are reports that a pro-peace Russian presidential candidate, somebody who was trying to run against Vladimir Putin, and by the way, who knew they were still having elections over there? A candidate who was trying to run against Vladimir Putin for president on one platform item, which was, I will end the war in Ukraine. You vote for me, elect me over Putin, and we'll end the war in Ukraine. That person has now been blocked by the Russian Election Commission from appearing on the ballot. And I kid you not, you saw, and by the way, that's outrageous, and I think that that's a terrible thing. But you saw people on the left and in the media saying, well, it's just another example of Russia's totalitarianism, that they won't even let the people vote for. They won't let this person on the ballot. And, of course, they're the ones who were celebrating the Colorado Supreme Court. I mean, what kind of anti-freedom, anti-democracy, authoritarian regime is Putin running over there? That you don't even let a candidate on the ticket? That's a dictator for you, with absolutely no sense of irony.
Totally fine here.
It sure is. All right, and then finally, we have more Trump news for you. This is our Trump news segment of the morning. Former President Donald Trump put out his annual Christmas message on Truth Social, and it doesn't at all disappoint. Merry Christmas to all, including crooked Joe Biden's only hope, deranged Jack Smith.
I like that only hope is in caps. You need to read that. You need to say it in caps.
Only hope in capital letters. Deranged Jack Smith. This got posted on Christmas Day at 2:38 in the afternoon. Included also are world leaders, both good and bad, but none of which are as evil and sick as the thugs, all capitals, we have inside our country, who with their open borders, inflation, all capitals, Afghanistan surrender, Green New Scam, high taxes, no energy independence, woke military, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Iran, all-electric car lunacy, and so much more. Boy, he covered a lot in that.
I know. And where is he wrong? But go on.
Are looking to destroy our once great USA, and then finishing up the Christmas message in all capitals, may they rot in hell.
But hold on. Again. He keeps going.
Again, Merry Christmas. So he starts with Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to all, including crooked Joe Biden's only hope, deranged Jack Smith. And then he goes through the whole thing and then ends with, may they rot in hell. Again, Merry Christmas.
Again, Merry Christmas.
Again. FYI.
Brilliant. Great.
So a Merry Christmas to all as well from President Trump. We hope you enjoyed that. He, by the way, based on the latest aggregation of polls from Decision Desk HQ, currently has a 54% lead in the Republican presidential nomination race. That's not he's polling at 54%. No, his lead over his nearest contender for the nomination is 54.
Just
points.
Astonishing.
Yeah, he's. We'll see. Iowa's coming up in a few weeks, and there's a lot of noise now that Nikki Haley's really moving in New Hampshire. I don't think so. It's 6:23. Coming up on this day after Christmas, maybe you're like me. Maybe you kept hearing the same thing over and over again from activists and politicians and media types. Don't forget, on this Christmas day, Jesus Christ was a Palestinian refugee, born of an unwed mother, right? All this claptrap. Yeah, we want to shine a spotlight on this propaganda coming up and give you the truth, the facts about that. No, Jesus was not a Palestinian. We'll explain next. It is 6:36 on this O'Connor and Company Tuesday morning, day after Christmas. Thanks for joining us. Merry Christmas. Happy Boxing Day. I guess we can start saying Happy New Year as well. 7:05, Daniel Turner, Power of the Future. 7:45, Trevor Maddich. 8:05, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer. And at 8:35, Raymond Arroyo. I'm Larry O'Connor, alongside Coffee McCoffster. Julie Gunlock, who has COVID.
Be nice.
Your cough, and your coughs are so robust and wonderful. They're broadcast worthy, but we're just going to try to keep hitting that button, right?
That's right.
You're feeling. Wait, you thought we were just going to Julie's got COVID. Let's move on. Oh,
going to remind the listeners every time we come back.
Mm-hmm. Have to. Well, no, because it's a reality. It's going around, and people are catching it, and the people in my family have it too. A lot of people are getting it, and life goes on, and it's all good.
Yeah.
Right. Now, here's what's not good: propaganda, and lies, and it always comes from the so smart intellectual academics who are so superior to all of us. And I've seen it all weekend long, and I'm sure you have. These journalists, these activists, these apologists for Hamas.
And apparently a Catholic priest.
And sadly, too many people of clergy of all stripes are reminding everyone that this Christmas season, as we see the evil specter of war erupt in the Holy Land, let's all remind ourselves that Jesus Christ was just a Palestinian refugee, born of an unwed mother, seeking asylum. And just so much of it is a lie. I mean, listen, every bit of it is a lie. First of all, this whole idea of a refugee, well, he had to leave his home to go to Bethlehem. Yeah, why? Because the big government forced him to for taxes.
That's right.
For census and tax purposes. He would have loved to have just stayed home with mom and a stepdad who really stepped up, by the way.
No kidding.
I guess technically a foster dad, not a stepdad. I want to be clear there.
Right. Yeah.
Either way. They would have loved it. So stop with the refugee thing, okay? But even more importantly, stop with the Palestinian thing. I assure you that during Jesus Christ's entire lifetime, if you walked up to him and said, "Hey, you're a Palestinian, right?" He'd look at you and say, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Yeah, exactly. Also,
No.
do Jews live in these Arab countries, these Muslim countries? No, they don't.
Well, I want to get to that part.
They have also been forced to leave.
Yes, I want to get to that part in a quick second here, because that's the other myth that we keep hearing about. And I want to get to it, but let's just draw this out real fast so everybody can at least push back to your liberal brother-in-law or the white Chardonnay lady from Loudoun County who's posting on her Facebook feverishly about how Jesus was a Palestinian. Jesus would never have identified himself as a Palestinian. No one around him would have identified themselves as Palestinians.
Right.
They were Jews. They were from Judea. That's where the word Jew comes from. Now, and let me be clear here. If you are an Israeli citizen right now, you probably call yourself an Israeli, right? Well, they didn't call themselves Israelis back then because it was after the kingdom of Israel had been split up, all right? All that was left was Judea, so they were all referred to as Jews or Hebrews sometimes as well, but never Israelis, right? A person living in that region right now who is a citizen of Israel, they don't refer to themselves as Palestinian. They call themselves Israelis because that's the name of the country. That's the name of it. Nobody called it Palestinians back then. Nobody was a Palestinian. All right, so there's that. Number one, it's a myth, and you're being manipulated by people. But then there's the other thing. You know, I got into a little spat with somebody about this so I don't know, why am I fighting with people at Christmas on social media for crying out loud?
You should. You should push back. No, but you should. You should push back on this.
You got to push back on this stuff. The regular Christmas observance in Bethlehem at the Church of the Nativity had to get there was a small observance there, but it wasn't open to the public. There wasn't the big celebration that is usually done on Christmas Day, and we were told it was because of the war in Gaza. Now, I just need you to understand something. Gaza is literally on the other side of the country from Bethlehem.
That's right.
Bethlehem is on the west bank of the Jordan River, just east of Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. And Gaza is all the way over on the Mediterranean, on the westernmost side of Israel, bordering Egypt.
Yes.
There is no reason whatsoever why Bethlehem couldn't be open for business and everyone having a wonderful time, but it's because it's under Palestinian control.
That's right.
It's under the Palestinian Authority, and they want to make pain for people. And so that's what they've done. When Bethlehem was under Israel control, there was no problem with celebrating Christmas.
But we've been seeing, and just this is a bit of an aside, but we've been seeing on X and other social media platforms videos of Hamas supporters that are marching in the streets of New York and other major cities, disrupting church services.
Yeah.
Christian services. Actually, they disrupted a charity event for the blind, and performances of the Nutcracker, any of these sort of Christian traditions or Christmas traditions, they've been disruptive. So it's all in an effort to disrupt the Christmas season. Because, that's how you get people to really sympathize with your cause. Ruin the Nutcracker. That's a smart strategy.
Well, we're going to detail all of that in a second, including some protests right in front of Secretary Lloyd Austin's house.
Yeah.
But sticking in Bethlehem real fast, this is incredibly important because there is no reason why you can't have Christmas celebrations in Bethlehem other than the fact that the Palestinian Authority, who now runs that area, just wants to inflict pain on people and punish people punish Christians to try to put pressure on the government of Israel because they dared to retaliate against the terrorist attacks of October 7th. But also, more importantly, and I want to commend Eli David for this on social media because he did the numbers. Up until 1995, Bethlehem was under the control of the Israeli government. They don't control that area anymore. They've had it since 95. There's no occupation. They can vote for their own leaders. They just keep voting for terrorists. They keep voting for people who steal money from them, but that's who they vote for. But back then, before the Palestinian Authority took over with the accords that came in 95, Bethlehem, the city of Bethlehem, was 80% Christian. Yeah. It is now less than 10% Christian.
Wow.
Why? Because it's been Islamified. It's been or the Palestinian Authority has been so ruthless, so brutal, so inefficient, so disregarding of the Christians or anyone else living in that area. The Christians said, "I'm not going to stay here. I'm getting out of here." So if there's a reason why we're not celebrating Christmas in Bethlehem this year, it's not because of Israel responding and defending themselves. It's because the Palestinian Authority is evil and ineffective. That's why.
It's almost like the Palestinian Authority does not respect religious freedom, Larry. It's almost like...
I know. You could connect those dots, but Lord knows we won't over here. No, gosh. Couldn't.
Right, no.
It's 6:44. Now, as you were mentioning, Julie Gunlock, the pro-Hamas protesters have been disrupting events all through the Christmas holiday season, and it's because, well, first of all, because they have no regard for Christmas, Christians, Christianity, on and on and on. Secondly, they are trying to turn public attention to their cause by annoying Christians of goodwill and people who are just trying to do the right thing, and oh, it's terrible. You get these mamby-pamby sermons from the pulpit, where pastors are being morally equivocal and saying, all the violence has to end. Well, wait a second.
Wait, what?
There would have been no violence if there weren't these death cult radical Islamic terrorists who murdered innocent people. And last time I checked Christianity, it's completely holy and righteous to fight back and fight evil.
Yeah.
So this whole, all the violence has to end is ridiculous and empowering the enemy. And by the enemy, I mean Satan. And but the idea of these protests at all of these Christmas and holiday events is to make mamby-pamby liberal Christians think, oh, you know what, they're right. We really do need it. Israel needs to stop.
Yeah,
it's a tactic.
Ben Shapiro has been really brilliant on this, trying to remind people this idea of, and you hear this refrain all the time, everyone wants to live in peace. Everyone just wants to be left alone. Everybody just wants to live their lives. This isn't true.
Yeah.
There are people in Gaza elected a terrorist government, and there is a lot of video showing that sort of the regular Gazan or the regular person is like celebrating, handing out candy when they hear of terrorist attacks.
Yeah.
Whether it's 9/11 or October 7th, and people need to get a sort of reality check and realize that no, some of these people, their reason for living is to destroy Israel and the Jews and to kill Jews. When you hear from the river to the sea, we've talked about this, right? What does that mean? I mean, I think half college students who participate in these marches don't really know what that means. But it's not just disruption and protesting. This is they want the destruction of Israel. They want the death of Jews, and we need to remember that.
And the Western world. And the Western world, let's
world.
not forget.
Absolutely.
Because there are plenty of churches that burn in Western Europe at
That's
their
right.
hands as well. And you're right to mention there was a holiday celebration in Australia, an annual celebration for a school for the blind. And these people jumped up on the stage as these blind children were walking across the stage. You know how
it's the biggest fundraiser for this particular charity, and they ruined it.
Terrifying, but imagine being a blind child.
Yes.
Walking across the stage, and
yes.
suddenly all these people are jumping out, and you have no idea where they're coming from. It's horrific.
The video's horrible.
Meanwhile, these pro-Hamas protesters gathered outside the home of several Biden officials on Christmas Day with displays of blood, including Lloyd Austin's house. I'm wondering if Merrick Garland will actually enforce security in front of those homes.
Right. Don't forget, it's okay when it happens to a
Supreme Court
justice.
Yes. Who
but
wants
this
to
is
protect
awful.
the
They
lives
showed
of
video
babies.
of Lloyd Austin's house, and it looks. I mean, I'm sure it's a very nice house. I'm just saying it looks like a regular neighborhood. This doesn't look. They weren't outside a gated community. They were. I think it looks like he's on a cul-de-sac. So they didn't just ruin it for Lloyd Austin. They ruined it for all of his neighbors. Christmas morning. Absolutely.
Meanwhile, remember when the New York Times had reporters had the big snit and the quiet walkout when they the New York Times published an op-ed from Senator Tom Cotton.
Yes.
Yeah. And the managing editor,
which turned out to be correct, by the way.
Yes. And the managing editor ended up getting fired.
Yes.
Or resigning under pressure because he published Tom Cotton. On Christmas Eve, December 24th, on Christmas Eve, the New York Times published an op-ed from the mayor of a city of Gaza City, who is a member of Hamas. You don't become the mayor of Gaza City unless you're a member of Hamas. So the New York Times published an essay on Christmas Eve from a terrorist.
Right.
Explaining the plight of their city.
Right.
Because of the Jews.
But a New York Times
correct
editor is fired when he
publishing
publishes
a U.S.
Senator Tom Cotton. Got it.
That's the news that's fit to print.
There you go. That's the New York Times right there.
It is 6:52. Coming up, we're going to speak with Daniel Turner, Power of the Future. He'll break down the Biden administration's insane climate agenda this year and how energy and energy independence could be the winning issue next year. Coming up.